What people find scary is completely subjective. There are umbrella ideas that are objectively scary, but our own individual deep-seated fears are very personal, thanks to our upbringings, our experiences, our circumstances, our mental statuses. I love Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't find it scary in the least bit. The Shining is one of the most brilliant movies ever, but I personally don't understand how someone can be genuinely and personally frightened by it. The Conjuring is effective as a haunted house ride in movie form, but for me, the thrills stay in the theater after I leave. That could just be me though, because I love horror movies and have seen so many that I'm pretty much immune. Also, when I watch a movie, I'm usually thinking about the craft and filmmaking that went into it all, so that dilutes some of the realism. But there are some movies I will be discussing that legitimately get to me. Our perception of what counts as scary is also a factor. Do you only think a movie is scary if it makes you check under your bed, in your closet, and makes you not want to be alone? Or do you also think a movie can be scary if it haunts your mind, lingers in your stomach, and chills your bones, even if after watching it you're still comfortable with turning the lights out? To me, both of those previous examples are what I define as scary. I don't think a movie qualifies as scary if it only makes you jump, because that's sort of a cheap gimmick. It's just a loud noise and a freaky image put together designed to make you jump out of your seat but then laugh it off and get over it. I also don't think movies that are designed to disturb you with grotesque imagery are scary, like Hostel or Saw. But there are a few movies that have gotten under my skin in some way, or have unsettled my soul more so than your average Conjuring. First and foremost, When a Stranger Calls, 1979. Not only one of the most underrated, overlooked, and forgotten movies, but I'd argue the first 20 minutes of this movie are the scariest moments in movie history. Basically, the opening sequence is an adaptation of the urban legend The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, in which a babysitter receives menacing phone calls telling her to check on the children, and these calls turn out to be coming from inside the house from the upstairs bedroom, where the children have been murdered, and the killer is trying to lure the babysitter up there to show her what he has done and do the same to her. The story itself is universally frightening because we've all been alone and heard noises and let our imaginations run wild about how someone could be in the dark watching us. Home invasion is a real thing that happens all the time. It's not supernatural, it's not far-fetched, it's not based on opinion, it's real. And that's what makes it so scary. And When a Stranger Calls adapts the terrifying urban legend to absolute nerve-shredding perfection. With its sinister music, its quiet cinematography, its shadowy suburban setting, its wide-eyed entrancing actress, and the haunting British voice on the other end of the phone, it immerses you into the situation and builds with extreme suspense that gets under your skin, chills you to your core, and haunts your subconscious to the point where you are paranoid of every shadow, every corner, every creak in your house. You think with the influence this film had on other horror movies like Scream, and for how masterfully scary it is, that it would be mentioned more often. But I think that the middle 40 minutes of the movie don't sustain the terror of the opening sequence and become sort of a messy detective chase movie. Luckily, in the last 20 minutes, it circles back to the effective horror of the iconic opening. Luckily, we have the 1993 sequel, When a Stranger Calls Back. It uses the same framing device as the original, having a babysitter get terrorized during a 20-minute long opening sequence, and then utilizing the rest of the film to track down the killer, but this one is more consistently scary throughout and better at storytelling as a whole than the original was. And it is scary. None of it is quite as scary as the opening of the original, but it finds a fresh new way to retell the urban legend in a sustained, bone-chilling, slightly weird but creepy way. There's also a 2006 remake of the original which stretches the iconic opening 20 minutes into a full-length film, but the results are mixed and it doesn't feel as authentic or frightening. It's kind of cheapened by its contemporary sensibilities and is pretty formulaic. The next movie is one that is quite controversial, and even I have mixed feelings about it, but I decided to include it because I'll tell you. The Blair Witch Project, the film that started the whole found footage craze, and as an actual film, it's questionable. Nothing happens and it looks easy to make, but that's also what's so brilliant about it and what makes it a great gimmick and intriguing piece of art. It was hugely successful, mostly because the marketing campaign led people to believe the footage of the young film students getting lost in the woods and haunted by an unseen witch was real. It wasn't, but what is so effective about the Blair Witch Project is that it leaves everything to the imagination, and with its mythology and general concepts, it sets you up to create something pretty horrifying in your mind. So it's really a personal, different viewing experience for everyone because everyone's envisioning something different. It's not the type of film to casually watch on a Saturday morning and expect to get scared by, but if you're alone or if you find yourself in the woods, it may be pure dread. Next is Hereditary. Now this one doesn't scare you in the traditional way of making you think there's someone under your bed or in your closet, but it slowly creeps its way onto your skin. It makes your blood run cold, horrifies your soul, and lingers in your psyche. Like I said, horror films, especially modern horror films, usually don't affect me outside the theater, and I'll either walk away saying that was gross or that made me jump, but I never carry the nightmarish weight that Hereditary put on me. It's a bleak, nasty, mean, malevolent movie that aims to emotionally shatter you, and it will haunt you. It's scary, but a special kind of scary. Next is a weird one, but it's the 1968 movie Chitty, Chitty, Bang, Bang. I know this is a delightful family musical about a flying car, but its cheery, joyful, happy exterior is what makes it all the more horrifying. It's kind of like how people are scared of dolls and clowns because they're meant to bring joy to children, but there's something so creepy about them. Other kids' movies like The Witches and The Wizard of Oz have a similar unsettling vibe, but Chitty Chitty Bang Bang brings me pure dread. The idea of an entire kingdom that hates and bans children, ridding of them to fend for themselves in some cave, is pretty sinister in its own right, but the evil, malicious child catcher who has a long nose that can smell and track down a child from a mile away and lure them out of hiding with candy is just horror. I never don't get anxiety watching this movie because it poses as some sweet, happy movie, but is so bizarrely frightening and surreal that it has a more off-putting vibe than an actual straightforward horror film, which you go into expecting to be freaked out by. Next up is The Strangers. Like When a Stranger Calls, but not quite as scary, this one revolves around senseless, motiveless home invasion that happens only because the characters were home, which makes it all the more scary. It doesn't exactly petrify and may fall victim to cliche, but is effectively chilling and spooky, especially because there's no motive. Oh my gosh. Next, I'm gonna name some movies that I almost included on this list because they affected me in some way, but not to the level of the others. Requiem for a Dream. It's horrifying and intense, but not in the bump in the night way, in the drugs are scary and being alive is scary way. The Witch. Not as drenched in dread as it could have been, but it definitely has an unsettling, cold, isolating old folk tale vibe that is chilling. The Witches. Like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, this is supposed to be a kid's film, but it is so nonchalant about its dark, twisted, child-exterminating nature that it freaks you out. Psycho. The scene where Norman comes out dressed as his mother is usually overshadowed by the iconic shower scene, but this is the most chilling moment of the movie, and the music and black and white cinematography make it even more creepy. Suspiria. This whole movie has a strange, surreal, offbeat, dreamlike feel that makes you quite uneasy, but the climax with the creepy-ass witch will make your neck hair stand up. Zodiac. The film focuses more on the detective aspect than the horror, but sometimes it catches you by surprise with truly bone-chilling scenes like the basement scene. Cloverfield. This is another controversial one, but something about this carries a sense of dread and forces you to vicariously put yourself in the situation, being in a city that's attacked by a mysterious creature from the sea and the little parasites living on it. It doesn't give you a lot of information about what's going on, so you're always on the same level as the characters, and there's just an existential fear that comes with this one. Contagion. We're living it. That one scene in Mulholland Drive. Jarring and haunting. So you should check these movies out and let me know what you think and what movies scare you, because we all are affected by different things.